The Acolyte is out in full on Disney+, new show set in the Star Wars universe starring Jung-jae, the Korean star of Squid Game, who learned English specifically for this role, Amandla Stenberg, Manny Jacinto and Carrie-Anne Moss. The premise looked very cool from the onset. First of all, we're finally leaving the Skywalker era, the Clone Wars, the Rise of Empire, and right after its fall. We're finally reaching into the wider, richer history of the Star Wars universe, as the show is set during the High Republic era, which is, in this specific case, around 100 years before the events of the original films. Secondly, the story was marketed as a mystery thriller, where a mysterious killer is murdering Jedi. A Jedi Master is assigned to investigate, and it turns out that this may have something to do with a former student of his. Sounds fucking amazing if you ask me. Well, reality is often disappointing, but before I'll get to that, I want to address the review bombing that was happening as the show was getting started. Apparently it had a massively negative response on the internet, even before the first episodes were released, with thousands of people going on IMDb and posting 1 or 2 star reviews. Why? I'm not sure. Maybe it's because of a black lead actress, maybe because people really hate Star Wars now. In any case though, even after the first 2 episodes, I thought the show was not so bad. Mediocre, sure, but not bad. And definitely not deserving the already very low scores posted by people who haven't even seen it in the first place. So if you're someone like that, if you're someone who goes on the internet to rag and complain about something you haven't seen, I think you're leading an extremely sad life. Anyway, I personally have given the show a full fair chance and watched the whole thing, 8 episodes, and having done that, I can say my original impression after the premiere has changed, and I now think the show is complete dog shit. Almost every single thing about it sucks. It doesn't even try to deliver on its promise of a mature mystery. There is no mystery because the identity of the killer is revealed in the first 10 minutes of the show. And then once it inevitably turns out that there is a larger threat, a masked Sith villain, that villain gets unmasked in literally his second scene. There is no tension, no mystery, no questions to be answered. Everything is laid out for the audience, who is treated like complete morons. The only sort of exception is of it being laid out. There are 2 flashback episodes, and the first one of them tries to be misleading to save some reveals for the other one. But the reveals are basically 100% obvious from minute 1, so you're just kind of falling asleep waiting for all of this to be finally spelled out. The writing is terrible, both when it comes to things like character motivations, their interactions with one another, the way they act in response to the events, but also dialogue, which at times is straight up abysmal. I mean, even just things which took me outside of the world. Somebody has pointed out how the Jedi in this show use a lot of American military language, American military slang, where first of all it doesn't really fit the Star Wars universe, and secondly, true, Jedi were a somewhat militaristic organization in the Clone Wars, but this is 100 years before that. At this point in time, they're a religious order. Why would they be saying all these weird military, army terms? The lead actress, Amandla Stenberg, is doing an awful job, doubly so because she plays 2 roles, twins. She's equally wooden and unconvincing as either one of them, and yeah, part of it is the terrible scripts that she has to work with, but admittedly, she is just a charisma vacuum. The editing is absolutely horrendous, and this is an aspect of movies, but even more so shows, that you typically just do not notice if it's done well, or even if it's just average. It's just there. But here the transitions between scenes and the cliffhangers at the end of episodes are so fucking jarring that it's frustrating to watch it. The character arcs are flat and completely unbelievable. The world, and come on, it's Star Wars. One of the greatest things about Star Wars has always been the world building. The world somehow feels artificial and not like something real people live in. Clothes and sets largely look too clean, like they're well made but never used or worn before, and as a result they kind of look like cosplay. It's a problem this and the sets, it's a problem that's been emblematic of pretty much all of the Disney Plus shows, be it Marvel or Star Wars, where things look simultaneously very expensive and very cheap. Now, there were exactly 3 things that I enjoyed about this whole mess. Number one, Lee Jung-jae is doing a great job with the terrible material he is given. I think he manages to elevate it somewhat, and despite the bad dialogue, I found him to play a somewhat interesting character and do it in a way that is at least in part engaging. 2, the fight choreography is genuinely very good. There is some proper hand-to-hand combat, but even more importantly, the lightsaber fights are fantastic. I think it's episode 5, which features a longer sequence. I mean, it's really good. It almost feels like a different show when we get to the action. And 3, there is a short scene at the end of episode 4, I think, where the main villain appears in the background behind the characters, kind of floating down between the trees in complete silence. And it is without question the creepiest, most unsettling scene in all of Star Wars. I loved it because for about 15 seconds it seemed like the show would become something truly interesting, something truly different. And then it didn't. It sucked. It's a waste of a great premise, and it doesn't even finish its story, leaving most of the important storylines open and unresolved for the next season, which I hope never comes, if I'm being honest, because this first one has been a torture to experience.